all the other fauna, but also for its dark skies. And it is now, actually it's Australia's very first international dark sky park, so you're in a very, very special place. Sadly, you will not see the dark skies at its best, and that's because at the moment the moon is quite bright. When the moon is not in the sky at new moon, this place is very, very dark. The Milky Way is radiant, absolutely radiant. And perhaps one day some of you will come back when the moon's new, look it up on your diary and find out when to come. Mind you, it's pretty good when the moon's up as well, isn't it? It's not a bad place. So I've already heard that some of you have been watching Stargazing Live this week with Professor Brian Cox. Brian and his team of 80 people have been up at Siding Spring for the last fortnight. He went home early yesterday morning. He's now in France, actually, so he's beat a hasty retreat. But what they did was really made our neighbourhood and our community famous, actually all over the world, because this was broadcast on the BBC as well as on ABC. It was BBC last week and ABC this week, just gone. So we're all rather excited about it. We're all very tired, but we're all excited that the world of astronomy, the science of the stars, has been brought to so many people. If you were watching that, and I know not all of you were, but some of you might have been watching, one of the stars of the show was a scientist called Dr. Lisa Harvey-Smith. And in fact, I talked to her on air a couple of times. So Lisa is really a very special person because 100 years ago, she wouldn't have been allowed to be an astronomer. Can you believe that in those days, in the early 20th century, there were no women in astronomy? And it was because at that time, there was a very different attitude from what there is now. It was all full of erudite professors who were extremely stuffy and spoke like this, you know. Oh dear, we must look at the stars. Don't let any women hear. Oh no. There were actually women involved in astronomy, and they did a lot of the work that was necessary in those days, a lot of calculations. These women were called computers. And nowadays, of course, we have electronic computers. But in those days, in the early 20th century, any female person who was in an observatory was not an astronomer. She was a computer. And then things changed, and that's what I want to tell you about. I'm not going to speak for long, probably only a couple of hours or so, something like that. Things changed, because in 1928, a very, very special lady was born in America. Her name was Vera Rubin. Her birthday was the 23rd of July, just in case you want to celebrate this. Sadly, Vera passed away on Christmas Day last year, so she lived to the ripe old age of 88 and made huge discoveries in astronomy. She actually, for anybody who's interested, she basically discovered something we call dark matter, which is terribly embarrassing because astronomers don't know what it is. We know it's out there and there's a lot of it, but we don't know what it is. But she was the person who really put the idea of dark matter on the map. That was in the 1970s. But her story is one that I think should be an inspiration to anybody who is really keen to make sure that astronomers are both male and female and not just men. She put women right in the spotlight in the world of science. So she grew up in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. She was interested in the stars from a very early age. She wrote that she used to sit at her window looking out and watching the stars wheeling through the sky, which they do. If you sit and watch the stars long enough, you can see that they move through the sky because the Earth is turning. And so as a child, she had binoculars like you're going to have soon, and I hope you might find the opportunity tonight to look at the stars through your binoculars, and certainly the moon. The moon is fabulous through binoculars. She had binoculars. She built her own telescope, quite a big one actually, went to high school, did very well in science, went to do a degree, a university degree, which was at a place called Vassar College. And then, because she was so bright and she got such good results,
she applied for actually a doctorate. It's a degree that you do. It's called Doctor of Philosophy, but it actually means that what you do is your own research. You investigate, you try and discover things for yourself. So she applied to Princeton University in America to do a doctorate, and they wrote back and said, well, we're not even going to send you the application forms because you're a woman. What a terrible, terrible thing. This would have been actually about the time of the Second World War. Now, Vera was not somebody to be messed with. So she wrote back and said, well, you know where you can put your Princeton University. And she went to another place where she studied astronomy. She eventually did do her PhD, which was a very good one, and became a professional astronomer. But throughout her life, she was always upset and annoyed about the fact that she was such a special person being a woman, because the world she worked in was entirely male. And in fact, there was one telescope that she worked at that didn't even have a ladies' toilet in the building. So Vera, being Vera, what she did was she got a piece of paper and a pair of scissors and cut out a little triangle, and then she had a triangle of white paper and she stuck that on the male sign on the door of the toilet. So instead of having a man there on the toilet door, it had a woman there, and none of the men could go in. And I think that's brilliant. Just Vera taking the initiative in women in science. So that's actually what she did throughout her life. Not only was she a great astronomer, made these extraordinary discoveries, but she was passionate about women in science and women in astronomy. And the world you girls live in now is very different from the one that Vera grew up in. We are very keen to get as many, not just women, but people of every gender, whatever it is, to come and work in science, because science is such a rewarding profession to have. It is also, in many ways, our future. The world needs the kind of technology that scientists are going to produce over, the forthcoming decades. We have so many issues facing us on this world where I think in a good place. I think the world is actually, in terms of the science that it's producing, I think we're learning more and more. And from my perspective, we're learning more and more about the universe. And it's thanks to people like Vera Rubin that we have a whole suite of people who are prepared to make that journey of study and actually make a difference. So the things, let me just finish by telling you what's exciting me in the world of astronomy at the moment, apart from the fact that we now have 50% of each gender working in astronomy, unlike the days when Vera Rubin was a girl. The things that are exciting me are questions like, are we alone? Is the Earth the only place in the universe where life exists? At the moment, it's the only place where we know life exists. But we believe that there is a good chance that we might find living organisms elsewhere, particularly perhaps in the solar system, where there are many spacecraft exploring places like the planet Mars. There has been a spacecraft exploring the planet Saturn and its moons, and there is one orbiting Jupiter at the moment, and one orbiting Venus as well. They're everywhere. And we're learning about the prospects of there being life elsewhere in the solar system, perhaps only microbial life, perhaps life of a very a very rudimentary form, but life nevertheless. And then with big telescopes like the ones on Siding Spring Mountain here, we're exploring the further universe to look for planets around other stars. I don't know whether any of you heard, there was big news from Stargazing Live this week, because a solar system was discovered that has 4 planets around it. They are around about the size of the Earth, but they're much nearer to their parent stars. And the other things that excite me about modern astronomy, not just the quest for life elsewhere, but the quest to understand how the universe works. And as I said a minute ago, one of the problems that we face is this mysterious dark matter. We know it makes up something like 5/6 of the universe, and yet it's invisible. It's actually here around us, whatever it is. It was discovered by Vera Rubin, but we're still trying to work out what it is. Maybe in the next 5 or 10 years we'll find that out. And who knows? Maybe dark matter might be useful to us. You might be going around in 50 years' time in your cars, propelled by an ounce of dark matter or a gram of dark matter to make your car go. That's the exciting thing about science. We never know where it's going to lead. And that's one of the things I think that excited Vera Rubin. As you can tell, she was a heroine of mine. I was very sorry to hear when she died, but her legacy lives on. Science is for everybody, and you don't have to go to a place where there is only one toilet. Girls, everybody, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for listening to me. And I'm going to hand back now to Viv, because